There was once a diamond merchant who was very famous. He travelled far and wide, alone and on foot, not wanting to attract attention, yet he became well known for his quality diamonds and gems and for his great honesty and straightforwardness. Equally famous for his skills was a certain conman. He knew of the diamond merchant and he determined to steal his gems. Studying the merchant's habits, he found out the exact date the merchant was setting out on his next journey, and that morning stationed himself at the gate of the city. As the gem merchant approached, the conman struck up a casual conversation. "You're travelling somewhere?" When the merchant stated a certain city, the conman expressed surprise and said that he too was going there and suggested they travel together. The merchant, not knowing the conman by sight and thinking he would provide company, agreed. As they travelled, the conman used his arts to convince the merchant of his open, simple, honest and straightforward character. And after a few days of this approach, began his work of stealing the merchant's gems. When the merchant fell asleep, the conman stayed awake and began to explore the merchant's bags. Finding no jewels, he very carefully put everything back as it was in the bags. The next night he felt under the sleeping merchant's mattress, and even more cautiously under the man's pillow. Still no jewels, and the conman was mystified. Each succeeding night, as the merchant slept soundly, the conman more and more feverishly hunted again and again through every possible place to find the gems. He was sure that they must be somewhere, but where? By the end of the journey he was exhausted, kept awake for so much of the night by his frustration in not succeeding in his mission, while the merchant continued as a happy and agreeable companion throughout the day. Now the journey was over. The conman could not contain himself, and literally flinging himself at the merchant's feet, pleaded to know where he had hidden his jewels. He confessed that he was a thief, that he was famous for his ability to be a conman and a thief. And now he confessed he had searched so many nights to find them to no avail. He continued to plead, acknowledging defeat and promising not to deceive the merchant if he would tell the secret of his hiding place of the jewels. The merchant laughed, saying, "You say you searched everywhere and everything, but did you search your own satchel? Every evening before retiring, I slipped the treasure in your own satchel, knowing well that should you want to rob me, you would not look there for the gems." Mayababa referred to this story in reminding us that God is not to be found searching outside ourselves, but is found within ourselves, within our own hearts. There was once a man who had inherited wealth and estates and had in time lost everything. He was wretched and destitute, with no cash, no house and furniture, and he was like a screech owl in a wilderness. His cry went out to his Lord. "Lord, you gave me provision, and now I have nothing. Either give me new provision or give me death." With this he fell asleep, and dreamt that he heard a voice from heaven speaking, "The wealth that you seek will be found in Cairo. God has heard your prayer, and in such a spot is a mighty treasure. Miserable wretch, leave Baghdad without delay and go to Cairo." He reached Cairo in high hopes, but he had nothing left in cash, and now he desperately needed food before seeking the promised fortune. Out of shame and sense of decency, he decided to wait for nightfall before going begging and scrounging. But with nightfall, he still shuffled back and forth on the street, struggling between hunger and pride. And in this manner, the night grew late. Suddenly, he was seized by the night patrol. It so happened that the inhabitants had suffered greatly from thieves, and the patrol had been ordered to deal harshly with those he caught. So the man from Baghdad was seized and beaten mercilessly with many blows. He cried out, "Please stop, I will tell you the honest truth." "All right, I'll listen for a moment. Why are you in the streets so late at night? You are not a native of this place. You're a stranger, so come clean and tell me of your rascally confederates and your scheme." The man from Baghdad swore many oaths of innocence and related the story of his dream and the hidden treasure. The patrol man accepted his story, but declared the man a silly fool for acting on such a dream. "What? You make such a journey on the strength of a phantom, a dream? There is no sense whatsoever in your brain. Many times, over and over, I have dreamt there is a hidden treasure in Baghdad, buried in such and such a street." And he named the very street and house where the man from Baghdad lived. The patrol man went on, declaring again that he had often had this dream, but that certainly the fantasy had never lured him away from Cairo, like this silly fool had done so from Baghdad. "So the treasure is in my own home," thought the man. "Why am I so miserable and lamenting here when I was living right on top of the treasure? I could have died of hunger as a beggar, and all because I was stupid and blind." And he returned home, bowing and prostrating himself in praise and thankfulness to God. And the last one, the Lord comes to his lover. Twice a year, in July and November, the perfect Master Tukaram always made a pilgrimage to Pandharpur. But at one time, suddenly ill with fever and too weak to go, his heart filled with sadness, it happened that some pilgrims who greatly revered Tukaram came to Dahu, where he lived, asking him to go with them to Pandharpur. Being unable to travel, he wrote 24 hymns of praise to God and sent them as a letter with the pilgrims. Choked with emotion, he very slowly walked a short way with them, saying, "O God, why hast thou become weary of me?" Weak and ill, he felt God was abandoning him, preventing him from making this pilgrimage. Reaching Pandharpur, the pilgrims, full of joy, made their way to the temple. Taking Tukaram's hymns of praise into the inner sanctuary, they saw Lord Krishna standing there, his lotus hands on his hips, making a charming sight. They placed their heads at his feet, laid the letter before him, and read it to him. Krishna was very touched. He called his wife Rukmini and told her about Tukaram and the letter, saying, "Let us go to him." But Rukmini reminded Krishna, the Lord of the universe, that all the people who had come to visit him would be troubled if he were not there. She suggests sending the great eagle, Krishna's vehicle, to bring Tukaram to Pandharpur, and this was done. Taking only a moment, the eagle arrived at Dahu and saw Tukaram still standing outside the town at the place where he had said farewell to the pilgrims, steadfastly waiting for their return. Unconscious of himself and everything about him, he thought only of the Lord. The eagle spoke gently and gave Tukaram the letter sent by Krishna. "You are unable to bear separation from me, and it is the same with me. Therefore I have sent the eagle to bring you. So sit on its back and come to Pandharpur. It'll make me happy. Do not refuse." But Tukaram wept, saying that it was improper for him to use the Lord's noble vehicle, and sent a message asking that the Lord come to Dahu. So the eagle flew back and told Krishna why Tukaram would not come. "He is still standing outside the town waiting for you." After a few days, the ceremonies at Pandharpur were over, and the pilgrims pleaded with Krishna to visit Tukaram. Reaching Dahu, they found Tukaram in the very same spot where they had left him, his hand on his forehead, shading his eyes, constantly watching for their return. Astonished, they exclaimed, "In performing his songs of praise for God, his whole body has become God, and still he does not let go his feeling of love for God." They gave him some items brought from Pandharpur, which delighted Tukaram, but he asked, "Is all well with Krishna? He has abandoned me here, far from himself." They said, "Krishna is coming today to visit you." Tukaram's desire to meet God there was very great, and placing his hand on his forehead, he waited with courage, continually pleading with the Lord in many loving words to appease his longing. Suddenly the eagle's wings flashed in the sky, bringing Lord Krishna. His delicate form and face were so beautiful. Jewels and garlands adorned his neck. Peacock feathers decorated his crown. Krishna stood before Tukaram and caressed him and embraced him with love. Their joy in being together knew no bounds. Soon Krishna took Tukaram's hand and they walked to the old dilapidated hut where Tukaram lived. Krishna asked for a meal to be prepared quickly, and Tukaram's wife, Avili, cooked some greens and bread. Krishna sat down and satisfied his hunger. Tukaram lovingly offered tulsi leaves for cleansing his mouth, and then Lord Krishna vanished out of sight. Thus was Tukaram's longing to be with his beloved Lord fulfilled.
Beautiful.
Jai Baba.